Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. My name's Amber. I upload beauty and true crime content. If they're the type of videos that you like to watch, then why not hit that subscribe button and come along and join our little family. And if you're already part of the family, then make sure that notification bell switched on just so you're notified of whenever I upload a video. Why not give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below. And if you feel like it, why not go follow me over on Instagram, where I post all of my latest makeup looks. And now we can get into today's Missing Monday. This case is a 20-year-old case. It is literally in December of last year, just turned 20 years old, and I thought what better a case to do. It's a nice thing to sort of commemorate the anniversary of this person going missing, and hopefully to get some information out there about them and maybe find out what's happened to him. So this is an Irish case, and this is the disappearance of Trevor Deely. He was a young Irishman that disappeared on the 8th of December in 2000, and he disappeared in Dublin. So just before I get into the missing, like what actually happened to him when he went missing, I always like to do a little bit of a backstory on the person. So Trevor Deely was born on the 15th of August 1978 to his parents Michael and Anne Deely. He was actually the youngest of 4 siblings. He grew up in Nairn, County Kildare in Ireland. So after finishing school, Trevor actually decided that he was going to study business, and he went to Waterford Institute of Technology to do this, but he did drop out in his second year. He subsequently decided that he was going to complete a computer course, and in May 1999 he began working in the IT department of the Bank of Ireland Asset Management on Leeson Street. So he was a 6'3" redhead. He was also a hard worker according to his colleagues. He did his job, and he did his job incredibly well. He never stopped to complain or involve himself in any of the office gossip. He just got on with his job. His former manager, Dara Tracy, described Trevor as a very trustworthy and good guy. So in late November of 2000, just weeks before his disappearance, Trevor actually went over to America, and he visited Alaska in the United States. He flew on a discounted ticket that his friend had procured for him, and this was due to his friend being a long-haul flight attendant. It was basically a free ticket. He went over to see a girl that he'd actually met in Dublin during the summer while she'd been holidaying in Ireland. So Thursday, December 7th, 2000 was a night of fun and relaxation for the Bank of Ireland Asset Management employees, as it was the works Christmas party. So the evening started with drinks at Copperface Jack's after work, but the official office party was actually at the Hilton Hotel, so they decided to go for some free drinks and then travel to the hotel later on. They partied, and after they'd been to the hotel, they eventually went to Buck Whaley's nightclub, where Trevor actually remained until closing time around 3:35, and this was then on the morning of December 8th. So Trevor had started to walk in the direction of his apartment, which was in the Renault complex on Serpentine Avenue in Ballsbridge. But it was a very, very stormy night. It was blowing a gale, it was windy, it was rainy. It wasn't just a normal storm, it was a very, very heavy storm, and it actually had gusts of wind up to 60 to 70 miles an hour, and because of this there was actually a taxi strike, so that meant that he did have to walk. So about 10 minutes after leaving the nightclub, Trevor actually decided he was going to stop off at his office where he worked, and he was let in after he'd called security. While in his office, he made himself a cup of tea and he spoke to his colleague, who was called Carl Pender. He was working the night shift. He also checked his emails just to make sure that there was nothing that needed responding to, and he made a note of things that he needed to do at work the following day. He left his office at around 4:03 AM, and he took an umbrella with him, and he continued walking in the direction of Ballsbridge, where his apartment was. So around this time, he had decided when he was walking home he was going to give one of his friends a ring, but he couldn't get through to them, and he ended up leaving a voicemail. Now the guy that was his friend, who was called Glenn, he actually deleted the voicemail because at the time he didn't think it was going to be of any relevance. He didn't obviously expect Trevor to go missing, but he described it as being along these lines: "Hi Glenn, I've missed you there, just on my way home, all going good, I'll talk to you tomorrow." And investigators never sought to retrieve it because they didn't think it would be any help to the investigation. So CCTV footage actually shows that a man dressed in black was waiting outside the gate to the bank for approximately half an hour before Trevor arrived. When Trevor arrived, they actually had a brief conversation, which suggests that he knew this person. That time of night, that late, you're not really going to stand and have a conversation with someone in pitch black if you don't really know them. So 2 minutes after this, Trevor then entered the bank, and like I said, he went about doing a few of his like little work duties. And while he was inside, there were 2 more men who arrived at the gate, but these 2 men, not the original man, the other 2 men have been cleared as being his work colleague, but this man in black still remains a massive interest in the case. No one's ever come forward, no one knows who it was. The CCTV footage is very, very grainy. By the time Trevor had left the bank, the man was no longer waiting outside. So at 4:14, there is CCTV footage which shows that Trevor was walking past what was then the AIB bank on the corner of Bagot Street Bridge and Haddington Road in the direction of his flat. About 30 seconds later, a man dressed in black passed by the same AIB bank, and it is believed that this is the same guy that Trevor had that brief conversation with outside of his office. But like I said, despite numerous attempts, this man's never come forward, and there's been so many appeals over the years, but they've never ever found out who this guy is. And this footage is the last known sighting of Trevor. So Trevor's absence from work the following morning was not seen to cause any concern at first, because obviously they'd been out, they'd had a heavy night of partying and drinking. You know, a lot of people thought maybe he was just a little bit hungover, and that's why he hadn't turned up to work. And the other thing was, he actually had flatmates that lived with him in his flat, but the flatmates were actually away for the weekend, so they wouldn't have known that he hadn't come home either. So it was when Trevor actually failed to show up the following Monday that alarm bells started to sort of ring, and you know, it was out of character for him. This had been a couple of days since the party, so he would have expected to have been at work. His work informed his family that there was obviously something amiss, and after this it was reported that nobody had spoken to Trevor that weekend, so the family decided that they needed to report him as a missing person. So over the following days, the family, they knew this was out of character for their son, and they really tried their best to get any appeals, any information that they possibly could to try and find him. They put up hundreds of posters, they handed out thousands of leaflets, and they went from house to house, business to business, to inquire if anyone knew anything about where he was or if anyone had seen him. Friends were able to obtain the CCTV footage which was used in the investigation. Like I said, that was the last ever footage of him. Detective Sergeant Michael Fitzgerald, who worked on the case from the beginning, said, "I've never worked on a case where the family was so protective. Unfortunately, the delay between Trevor being last seen and reported as missing meant that there was vital time lost." Now, in any missing person case, it is critical to try and get as much together as you possibly can within hours of them going missing, or even just a day. Like, this had been days, and the longer it goes on, the less likely you are to find someone, unfortunately. So the Garda Sub-Aqua team, I believe the Garda are the Irish police. If you're not from Ireland, you might not know that, but they are basically the Irish police. The Garda Sub-Aqua team searched the River Dodder and the Grand Canal, but they didn't find anything. They were unable to drain the Grand Canal basin, however, because it could have structurally affected the integrity of it and the surrounding buildings. Trevor's sister Michelle said that she'd rang Trevor's phone a few times that weekend, and she believes that it rang out, but according to Dr. Philip Perry, a senior research fellow in the Radio and Optical Communications Laboratory at Dublin City University, a phone in the 2000s would have literally have gone dead within seconds of falling in the water, because their suspicions at first were he's been drunk and he's probably drowned. But if a phone had fell in the water, it's highly unlikely that it's going to ring through at all, because obviously phones are like made water resistant and stuff now. They weren't made like they are now. But then the sister come out and said, you know what, actually it was all a bit of a blur. She couldn't 100% say if it had actually rang through or not. She just thought that it had. So 2 Gardas travelled to Alaska. They actually decided they were going to get on a flight and go to the United States to question the girl that he'd gone over to see the weeks before he went missing. And Trevor's sisters also decided to do the same thing, because they wanted to see if, you know, they didn't think he would have just fled, but it's a lead, you've got to chase down every possible lead. But the trips didn't produce any significant leads. A special documentary was then hosted by Donald McIntyre, and it aired on TV3 in 2015 to try and get information out there to see if anything else could be drummed up about Trevor's disappearance. So in December 2016, a new investigation was opened. The following April, enhanced CCTV footage, because obviously as time's gone on, we've now got a lot better computer technology, so they've been able to enhance the footage footage to get a better view. They released it and it led to the announcement by the Garda that they believe that the man dressed in black seen behind Trevor on Haddington Road on that footage was the same man that was on the footage of him speaking to someone outside the office. The same month they offered €100,000. This was a reward for any information. So in August 2017 the Garda began a search of a 3-acre secluded area in Dublin suburb of Chapelizod, sorry if I've butchered that, about 8 kilometres from where Trevor was last seen. There was actually an informant and he came forward and he alleged that Trevor was murdered on the night of his disappearance, and it was by a Crumlin-based criminal known to the Garda. The gang was involved in drugs and prostitution, a really dodgy, you know, they were a really dodgy gang. They were known to be around the area where Trevor had disappeared. This same gang was actually investigated for a separate murder, which was the murder of Sinead Kelly in June 1998. The informant said that Trevor and his alleged murderer had not known each other and it was literally just, it was by chance. Although a gun and drugs were found during the search, investigators concluded that were not related to the case, calling the site a stash area for criminals. The search was called off in September and the Garda said at the time they'd not found anything that would help them assist in the case. Bringing it up to speed, we're now into 2020, which is literally, this has just happened in December of last year. The Garda press office shared a video on December 7th of 2020 as part of a renewed appeal for information for Trevor, and the video was to commemorate the 20th anniversary of his disappearance, and it was basically just a video appeal, you know, trying to get anyone to come forward with any information they might have. There is actually still a reward of €100,000 from Crime Stoppers if anyone is able to come forward with any information leading to the location of Trevor or any information that could significantly progress the case. I am going to leave, because obviously this case is still a very open case, I am actually going to leave the phone number and everything down below, because I know that sounds really silly, but someone might watch this video and it might jog someone's memory, and if you need that number to give them a call, then I'll pop that in the description box down below. So Trevor's sister Michelle said that we're entirely reliant on the public, we're entirely reliant on the persons who knows what happened to Trevor and where he is. That's all we're interested in, where he is. It's not even what happened, it's where he is. She added, he's the baby of our family and we have spent the last 2 decades doing all we can to find him, but we are still stuck in the same place of not knowing anything beyond his last confirmed sighting at the top of Haddington Road. And then Trevor's father, Michael, actually said, it's very difficult to me, the whole mystery surrounding his disappearance. You're wondering about this and wondering about that. You just can never get away from it, no matter if you drive down the country or walk out the town of Naz. It's the same thing. There's always something to remind you of Trevor. Trevor's whereabouts to this day still remains unknown. He is still classed as a missing person, and that is why I wanted to do this video, because I feel like it's a really good one to do, because there's just been a lot of renewed interest in the case with it being a milestone of that 20 years missing. I'm just going to give you a little bit of my sort of theories to what could have happened. I think there's a few major theories. There could have been foul play. Now, whether that be involving the guy dressed in black, or whether it just being, you know, like that man said, he's bumped into, he's got into a bit of a turf war with a gang and it's been completely and utterly wrong place, wrong time. It could have been he's been drunk and he's accidentally fallen into the river. You know, they haven't been able to properly search that river. That does seem plausible, depending on whether the sister did ring through to him or not. And it could just be that he's fled. I feel like the fact that he's fled is highly unlikely, because for me, the place that he probably would have fled to would have probably been Alaska with that girl, and they've chased that lead and nothing's come of it. So for me, I'm not sure about this one, guys. I do think that there might be a bit of foul play involved, but anyway, it would be nice, regardless of what's happened to him, whether they find him alive, which would be absolutely incredible, or whether, unfortunately, which is very, you know, it's not a nice thing to find out, but if he has been met with foul play or an accidental death, at least the family know what's happened to him. I think it's that not knowing, like, it's absolutely, I can't imagine finding out that a family member's been murdered, but you know what's happened to them. Like, they don't know, they have no idea what's happened to him, they don't know if he suffered, they don't have a clue. And I think that's what's so difficult about cases like this. You know, it blows our minds, and that's why we're so interested in cases. But can you imagine being in the footsteps of being that family member, of having that missing son? Like, I can't imagine how much that plays with your mind, all these thoughts that are going to go through your head. Anyway guys, I hope you've enjoyed watching this case, and I shall see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.